So here is the review portion of the podcast where I'm going to be talking about something I have watched recently, either a new movie release, something I watched on Netflix, on TV, whatever. So this movie that I watched, it's called Creed. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a new movie, whatever. And in short, this movie is fantastic. Oh my gosh, this movie is so good. But before I get into how much I love this movie, let me give you a rundown of the history of Rocky for Manny. So when I was little, I would go to my parents' friend's house once a week. My parents had like a church thing or a meeting or something, whatever. So at this family's house, they owned Rocky 1 through 4 on VHS tape. So for once a week, I would watch one of these movies for like, I don't know however long it was, but I've pretty much seen all 4 of these movies several times in my life, and I love them so much. Rocky 5 is a huge disappointment. It had potential and it just failed miserably. Rocky Balboa is a good nostalgia movie and a good story. I think it got a little silly at the end. The premise of bringing Rocky back into boxing is it's a little silly, but I still enjoy it, and I still find enjoyment out of it. And it has the greatest movie speech of all time when Rocky talks to his kid about life and how hard it can hit you. One of my friends, she used that speech during graduation, and it was amazing. It was the best part of graduation and a highlight of mine, even though she probably doesn't realize that, how much I love these films. So anyways, besides Star Wars, Rocky is probably my favorite franchise of all time. I love these films so much, and when Creed was announced, I got so excited. Apollo Creed is my favorite character, okay? So when I heard that they were going to make a new Rocky film where Apollo's son wants to be a boxer and he wants Rocky to coach him, are you kidding me? This is the greatest premise to a sequel since Star Wars 7, maybe. Hopefully. Cross my fingers. So yeah. So I was so pumped up for this film. Then the trailer came out, and it got me even more pumped up because Michael B. Jordan looks like the greatest person to play this role. I don't know who else could play this role better in this day and age, but man, then I saw this movie. Oh my gosh, this movie was so good. Oh, this movie is on par with Rocky 1. I'm not kidding. It is. Rocky 1, it's still going to be number 1. I mean, when it wins Best Picture, and it basically sets motion for all boxing films. It makes everything a cliche. Tells the greatest underdog story of all time. Of course it's going to be number 1, but Creed comes in a close second. I enjoy the other films as well. I love those films. Rocky 4 is just such a fun movie to watch, except for the Apollo Creed death scene. Spoilers. Yeah, I mean, these films are fun, and then Creed comes out of nowhere, and it's such an emotional film. It's such a beautiful film, more about the character study than about the fights itself. I mean, there's no big Russian villain in this one. There's no Clubber Lang in this one, you know. There's no Apollo Creed in this one as the bad guy. And it really doesn't matter because that's not what the movie's about. It's not about Creed's struggle against Thunder Lips. It's Creed's struggle at, wanting to make his own legacy and not live, and not create this legacy based off of his name alone. He wants to prove to himself and he wants to prove to others that he can be this great boxer without writing Creed as his last name. So I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let me talk about the premise a little bit. The elevator pitch for this movie. As I said before, he wants to be a boxer. That's generally what it is. So his dad, Apollo Creed, died when he was very, very little, and so he grew up without a dad, who happens to be probably, arguably, the number 1 boxer of all time, aside from Rocky Balboa. So he decides after living in LA, he wants to move to Philly. He wants to be a boxer. After growing up in fame, he has this great job and whatever. But now he wants to be a boxer. He wants to prove to himself that he can be a boxer. So he looks for help from Rocky Balboa, and he wants Rocky Balboa to train him. And meanwhile, we have Rocky Balboa, who has pretty much lost a lot. He's very alone. He still has Adrian's, the restaurant, but he's by himself, so he doesn't have anyone. And then all along, here comes Apollo Creed's son, who he never knew, wanting to have him coach. So then they decide to go for it, and that's my elevator pitch for this movie. It's a great Rocky film, and it has the same Rocky feel, and that's why I love it. It's an underdog story. Is it a cliche? I wouldn't really say it's full of cliches. It's very special film in its own work. The cast itself is a standout. Michael B. Jordan physically looks the part, and he acts the part. He is incredible on screen. I can't wait to see more of what he can do. The director of this film directed a movie called Fruitvale Station, which I haven't seen yet, but it's on Netflix. It's on my list. And it stars Michael B. Jordan as well. And after seeing this film, I'm like, okay, now I have to watch Fruitvale Station and see these two work again, because he was so good in this movie. But who I think is even better in this movie is Sylvester Stallone. Oh my gosh, his dramatic performance in this movie is incredible to watch. Especially, after 6 films of history with this guy, you've watched this guy grow from the greatest boxer to this nobody to the greatest boxer, and back down to, an old nobody, essentially. So just to see the struggles that he has to go through and his relationship with Donnie Creed is wonderful on screen. Also, this movie has a great score to match its film. The other ones, I think, have better scores and more memorable songs. Eye of the Tiger. But the soundtrack in this movie works with this film, and it works with Creed. It sets it apart from the other films. Now, would I have liked to have the iconic song at the end of the fight like the other 6 films? Absolutely. And that was, one minor little nitpick that doesn't affect the overall score of this film. But I would have liked that. But other than that, it matches the tone of this movie, the feel of this movie, and it's great. And I have the soundtrack on my phone, so when I eventually work out, probably never, I have this soundtrack because it's going to work. So here are my 2 little nitpicks, and these are very small. I honestly, this film is so good that I really don't want to, don't frame this in a way where I'm saying, oh, this movie sucks because of this and this. I'm not saying that at all. I love this film. But here are my 2 nitpicks. One of them is a little spoiler, but I'll get to that one last. When they introduce these famous boxers, into the movie, the first time you see them and the first time Donnie makes eye contact with them, well, I guess not. But when you see these boxers on screen for the first time, the movie pauses and it gives a stat sheet. It gives all these stats, and honestly, I couldn't tell you a single thing that I read from any of those stats, at all. So I felt like it just was like we're going along on this perfect road, and then you just pump the brakes, and then you just give a little bump on the road or whatever. I don't know. It just felt a little out of place, and I really didn't care for it. And I don't remember any of it. I get what it's trying to do. Is trying to give you some backstory with these boxers, to show you that they're big shots. But I really didn't pay attention at all to that. Now here's my little spoiler for the film. So skip a minute because it's just gonna be a little minute. And here's the warning: 3, 2, 1. So in Apollo Creed's final fight, he loses. And it's the Rocky Balboa cliches. He lost the fight, but he won the fight. And I get it, I get what it's saying to the movie, and it works in the movie. Don't get me wrong, it does. I just feel like he deserved to win that fight. Maybe I'm just, feeling bad for him because he lost the fight. I don't know. It just felt like a little cliche. It's not affecting my overall score at all. But yeah, I don't know. It just kind of bugged me, but it's okay, whatever. So yeah, I mean, and to talk about the fights really quickly, without spoiling them, the first fight is such an incredible fight. I need to buy the Blu-ray just to figure out how they did this fight because it's so great. And the second one also is more of your classical Rocky fight, which isn't a bad thing. It's fantastic. This whole film is fantastic, and so my score for this film is an A. It's an A. There's no shocker there. It's an A. I love this film. Will they make more? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Do I want them to make more? No. I think the film ends with the perfect conclusion for both Rocky, and in a way where you get the sense of Donnie Creed. His conclusion. He's still gonna make this legacy for himself. So yeah, I don't. They might make more. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know how the box office numbers are going for it, how much the movie's profiting. I assume, if it profits a lot, they're going to make more. And I will still go see them. I just really don't want them to do another Rocky 5. And that's all I'm really saying when I say I don't want any more. So yeah, Creed was fantastic. If Star Wars 7 wasn't coming out, this would have been my number one movie of the year. As in number one looking forward to, and now currently my number one film of the year until I see Star Wars 7 and talk about that. So, there was Creed. This has been the movie review portion of the podcast, and now let's move on to the finale, my movie question.